So business intelligence, when people ask me to define business intelligence, I think of it as just turning data into information. I see 4 pillars: query, reporting, analysis, and then the more recent one is data discovery. And the Business Objects platform I've used for years and is stable and is the go-to thing for that. It does all those different things. So where's SAP Analytics Cloud come into this?
It's a good question. And I absolutely get the 4 pillars, and I would give it the same definition. It's about turning data into insight, absolutely. I think what we're seeing more of in the world these days is more of that data discovery piece, and that being the bit that people really feel they need to do more of to really find that insight. And that's where Analytics Cloud has been more positioned, is to simplify how people can do that part of that BI piece. How do you get that data in there really quickly, and how do you really make that easy for people to access that information and share that insight with other people? You know, combining things like machine learning in there as well, so really adding more value add into that platform. So it's not just about what you see, it's about what the computer's understanding of that data. But you've mentioned 3 other pillars there that maybe Analytics Cloud really doesn't fit in at the moment. So I think the view there is that hybrid is absolutely a valid deployment. What do I mean by hybrid? I mean, what I'm saying is, why wouldn't you have both of those platforms sat alongside each other? You know, one that's delivering that maybe operational view of that world, the reporting piece that we've talked about, whilst you have this other platform that is being designed for kind of speed and access to that data discovery piece. That's kind of where I see Analytics Cloud and maybe both platforms working together.
So you don't feel that Analytics Cloud is a replacement, or going to be a replacement, I should say, for Business Objects platform, much like Webby was a replacement for desktop intelligence?
That's a great question. The reality is, from my perspective, that the world is changing, you know, and being able to deliver solutions through a much easier and agile way, so people can get updates really quickly, new features and functions really fast. Cloud is the way that that's delivered, and we can debate what we mean by cloud, but what it's about is taking the pain away from you as an organisation and letting someone else worry about deploying that content. So I see a world at some point where all BI solutions have to be delivered through a cloud-based solution. Does that mean that Analytics Cloud is a replacement for the traditional SAP BI solution? Possibly, but I think that's only ever going to happen when it delivers those 4 pillars that you talked about, because yes, lots of organisations want to do that data discovery piece, but hopefully you, as I have, most customers aren't quite there yet, right? People still want to do the traditional reporting piece. So that needs to be in that capability. What SAP are really doing though with the Analytics Cloud, when we think about the investment they're making into that as a platform, you know, there's a lot of development going into it. You know, it is a massive focus for them. You know, they have 2-week, 3-week delivery cycles where new features and functions are being added. So I can see a world at some point where those 2 things, from a functionality perspective, are much more closely aligned. Will the traditional BI platform ever not exist? I think I can see that as a world at some point, but to me, that's not anywhere in the kind of near, you know, to short to medium term.
So you mentioned taking the worry away from the IT function to manage an application.
Yeah.
But moving to an online application, doesn't that introduce worry about data? We see data breaches of millions and billions at times of usernames and passwords being stolen.
Yeah.
This is my corporate data that's going to be in there. Isn't that a worry?
I think you're absolutely right. In this day and age, yes, it's always going to be a worry. You know, but SAP are very conscious of that. You know, and the data centers that SAP, you know, have in place to support the Analytics Cloud environment have all the various levels of security that they need to be able to make sure that the data is secure as it can be. But one of the key things with the Analytics Cloud platform is that, you know, it can report off of your on-premise solutions as well as reporting off of cloud solutions. And actually the data remains in your on-premise world. It's just the answers to the queries that are being responded that are then delivered through the interface. So the data isn't moving to an environment that you then have to worry about. The data's inside your firewall. It's in your premises. So any security that you have in place is still going to be maintained.
So my online data is already online for Salesforce and other
Absolutely.
applications, but my on-premise data will always stay.
Will always remain. So the view of the world is if it's SAP data, so that online connectivity at the moment is only with SAP solutions. So if you're reporting off of SAP platforms, then that absolutely is that online connectivity. Analytics Cloud doesn't just work with SAP systems, right? I mean, you talked about Salesforce, but it also works with non-SAP on-premise platforms as well. In that world currently, then that data would then be moved into the kind of Analytics Cloud world. So it would have to move, but for all your SAP data, that absolutely would remain in place.
So you mentioned SAP as a data source. One of the nice things about the Business Objects platform was it was data source agnostic.
Yeah.
And the worry has been, since SAP took over Business Objects, that SAP is always the first data source that comes along for a new feature. Is that with Analytics Cloud as well? Have I got to move all my data to SAP to get the benefits?
So no is the short answer to that question. You don't have to move everything to SAP. Is it SAP first? I guess there's always going to be an SAP first world when they come to creating connectivity, because it's an environment they own and it's an environment they manage. And the challenge you have with other data sources is as enhancements get made to those data sources, then SAP obviously have to build the relevant connectors and test and all those kinds of things. But actually, because we're looking at such aggressive timescales to turning these things around, then you're not having to wait a long time to see new features and functions being developed for non-SAP systems as well, whatever they may be. And obviously we're in that world now where even those non-SAP systems are very different to the world that maybe we've come from, where it was DB2 and it was SQL Server and those kinds of things. You're in this world now of Hadoop and all those kinds of things. And as there are a lot more kind of open source platforms, then providing that level of integration, interaction to those platforms, again, has become a lot simpler.
So going back to the data discovery part, which is the big focus at the moment, as you say, with Analytics Cloud. We had Explorer in the Business Objects platform, which had some uses and I think was misinterpreted of how it was used. People didn't use it as like a Google search, which they should have done. They just tried to look at data. And I think with all data discovery, what people forget is there has to be an element of data preparation. It's meant to be users get access to it, but you've got to make the data right for them to look at so they don't make wrong decisions. So going forwards, does this machine learning capability automatically do that data preparation for you, or is there still an IT function to make sure it's clean? Yeah,
so I mean there are elements of it, and I guess the clean comment that you made right at the end, I guess is the critical one. Is that so you have to make sure that the quality of the information that's going in, because if it's bad information in, then ultimately it's going to be bad information out. So I think in any world, with any solution, you have to think about the quality of that information. That isn't currently a feature of the Analytics Cloud platform. That's a consideration outside of that. But once you've got that information, then I guess there are a couple of answers to your question. Does the machine learning capability help? Absolutely. It's there. Can interrogate the data and can find patterns and understanding in that information, which it can then present to you as an end user. So things potentially that you'd never been able to see, it can find those patterns in the data. Okay. There is also a modelling environment inside the Analytics Cloud platform. Does that need IT support? I think it needs someone who understands what it means to model data. They need to understand what the data looks like and I guess the relationships between that data. But SAP are definitely looking to move that piece of development away from IT to a more end user based environment. Absolutely. But would I give it to everyone within my business to model data? No, for exactly the reason that you've given, because if you make a mistake, you're potentially making decisions on bad information. But do you need IT to do everything now? Absolutely not. I think one final point to mention on that is that if you do have an existing investment into the SAP BI platform, so Business Objects Enterprise, you'll know about the universe, and you'd have made investments into the universe as a semantic layer. You can actually connect your Analytics Cloud environment to that semantic layer. Okay. So you're getting the power of that environment, the simplicity and the great looking user interface of the Analytics Cloud, but absolutely fully utilizing the investment you've already made in that semantic layer to deliver that insight to your end users.
Cool. So we've got data discovery, a bit of machine learning. Is that all I get?
It's not actually. It's not. It's a good question. So I mean, one of the biggest use cases behind SAP delivering the Analytics Cloud platform was to try and combine as many analytical type capabilities into a single place. If you look at the on-premise world today, if you want to do predictive, you want to do BI, that's two separate platforms. The other piece that's in the Analytics Cloud is the planning aspect. And that again, if it was on-premise, would be a separate tool. But with inside Analytics Cloud, those three features, so BI, predictive, and planning, are all an integral part of the Analytics Cloud platform. Yes, they may be different licenses, and you have to choose what you want, but the features are all built into the platform. And as an end user, you actually don't know that you're using a predictive feature or maybe that you're using a planning feature. You just know that actually I maybe like to do some forecasting. I'd like to say that sales number and potentially see what that sales number looks after, for the next 12 months. That could be a predictive feature that's running, or it could be a planning element that's actually running to help you identify those particular numbers. But as an end user, you just don't know. You don't care, right? You don't care what feature you're using. You just want to get to an answer. And all of that is built into that one interface. All those features are built into that one tool, and it really changes how you as an end user can actually start to work with data.
So talking of the end users and the user interface, the Business Analytics platform, we've got the interview portal where it's a central location. There's a central location in Analytics Cloud to start, but we know that when we push out a new version of that portal, if you like, then users aren't very happy, they don't like change.
Yeah.
How much of a training cycle would I need to plan for my users if I'm going to move them to Analytics Cloud?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think there are a couple of answers to that. I mean, the interface has been designed to be really easy and to look like tools that people use today. So when you're on websites using various other platforms, you often see a very common theme around how these platforms work and how you interact with them. And Analytics Cloud has been developed to kind of look like those things, so it becomes easier for people to understand. If you're still looking at both platforms, so that hybrid model that we've talked about, then what SAP have developed is something called Analytics Hub. So the reason why they have Analytics Hub, and what that is a portal that can sit across both of those platforms. So not only is it simplifying access, but it's giving people one point of access. So rather than having to think, right, okay, am I going to the interview portal, or am I going to the Analytics Cloud portal? Actually, you're not. You're just going to the Analytics Hub that understands all of the different bits of information you've got in those two platforms. You can easily type in to say, look, I'm interested in, marketing and sales insight for Q4. It would just show you what information is relevant. You would make the selection. It would take you to the various places you want to go, but you've all done that through a single interface. So they've paid attention to the fact that they know they need to make it easier for people. Training's never a bad thing, right? I'm always a great fan of making sure that people know what they're doing, but it's not such a big thing as maybe as it used to be.
So talking of end users,
Yep.
one of the problems IT have is when they push out new versions, say of Microsoft Office Suite and things like that. New Word, new Excel, most users don't know how to work 10% of it anyway, and it's just pushed on, and mostly from a supportability point of view. How can I buy in my user base that when I'm rolling out SAP Analytics Cloud to them, that they're going to come on board and want to use that product?
The challenge you mentioned from an end user perspective is always a difficult one, right? So how do you make people aware that there's these new features and new functions, available to them? Word and Excel is obviously a good one. I mean, they are massively, capable tools and platforms with lots of features and functions. And Analytics Cloud is very similar to that. There's lots of capability in there. But I think it's presented in such a way that it's really easy for those end users to understand and to see what's available to them. But one thing you get if there are changes is that when you first log in, it'll actually give you the option to see what's changed and what new things have been added. And what SAP are trying to do when they make changes is make those changes almost invisible to the end user. They're not making big, massive enhancements that suddenly change the way the whole thing looks or the whole thing the way it works. Making small, subtle updates to the platform that ultimately just improve the way that end users are doing things today. And I think if you're improving people's use of a tool, then you're always going to get that buy-in that you mentioned.
So if it's an end user tool, does that mean I only point it to production data?
Good question. Yes and no. I mean, there is the ability to have different Analytics Cloud platforms. So you can have one that maybe is looking at test and dev environments if you want it to. And it ultimately comes down to each individual kind of customer and how they want to make that information available. Ultimately, you always want it to potentially, to look at production data because that's where the insight is. That's where your real business is. But you can have different Analytics Cloud environments that then will help, with testing and development of content if you want to.
So the more corporate content you may do that for, but end user generated data discovery,
Yep.
yes, would always be against production.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can create environments within your analytics cloud world where people have folders and content that's theirs, and they can create that content. Unless they want to share it with people, then they don't have to share it with people, right? It's their content that's theirs to access. So you have flexibility about how you make that content available to people. Is there a corporate view of the world, or is there just my view of the world that I'm interested in to answer my potential line of business question?
So then finally on the end users, the one they always ask, can I download it to Excel?
Good old Excel. So yes is the short answer. Of course you can. You can put it into Excel if you want to. I mean, my argument, I guess, and maybe your argument would always be, why would you want to do that? Why? Typically it's because Excel is easy to use. People understand it, people get it, and there's lots of capability in it. Analytics Cloud fits all of those examples, right? It's easy to use, it's easy to get access, and it's really simple to start finding patterns in that information. So why would you want to put it why would you want to put it into Excel? Because it's easy to access and it's easy to share that insight with other people. All you're doing if you extract it is just causing ultimately more challenges for yourself moving forward.
So if my users are going to come on board, I've got my data discovery, that's all set up, I've modelled my data,
Yep.
so it's all nice and clean for them. Do I just give them a URL?
Absolutely.
Simple as that.
It's that easy. It's that easy. It's just typically it's a browser-based platform, so it's really easy to get access to. Obviously, you need to set up users and give them the right usernames and passwords. But it is just one single URL, which ultimately we could get up and running really quickly. That's the powerful of cloud-based solutions, is that if you want it, we get it for you, and it can be up and running really, really quite quickly. So mobile is often a big challenge. It's something you hear a lot of demand for, but actually setting up mobile interface can be quite difficult because of internal security challenges. Because this interface ultimately is publicly available anyway as a public cloud, then setting up mobile and delivering that content not only through a browser, but actually through a mobile interface is really quite simple as well.
Okay. So if I want to go there, I'm giving my user URL, someone's going to pay for this.
Yes.
How do I sell it to my exec team?
So, I mean, the simple one is that it changes a subscription-based license. So rather than that potential massive layout of investment right up front to buy, typical licenses for a platform, it's now as simple as saying, actually, subscription-based, so it's a monthly cost. So how you deal with that through finance is very different. So actually, you can start small. You can start with a small amount of users, to really get that buy-in from some of those key stakeholders, and whether that's from an exec team or whether that's from an individual line of business. Ultimately, that all depends on how your organisation is set up and where you see those key stakeholders. But as they start to see the power and the value that Analytics Cloud can bring, then you can just start to grow that platform by adding more and more users to it. And doing that is really, really easy. It's not a long process to get that done.
So on my on-premise solution, I might use Design Studio, for example, to give them an executive view of the organisation rather than an operational view. Do I have the same type of thing in Analytics Cloud? Yeah,
so you have something very similar. I mean, so the Analytics Cloud interface is very user-friendly anyway, and you create lots of different visualizations which you can pull together as stories, and those things can be linked together, so you can click on different parts of information and see things kind of filtered around. But if it's the exec that you're really targeting, then there is another offering from SAP called Digital Boardroom. Now, Digital Boardroom isn't always the best name because it's not just for the boardroom. It can be from anyone in the organisation. It's more about digital insight. What does that really mean? It's about a very interactive touchscreen experience that allows you to take that content that's been developed in Analytics Cloud and push it through this kind of big screen environment that allows you then to start seeing exactly how your business is operating. And depending on the sources of data that you're using, potentially really seeing that in a real-time environment, the ability to do what-if analysis, the ability to drill down and actually see how your business is operating today and how making small changes to that environment might actually make fundamental changes to the way your organisation is running, that's really possible through this kind of digital boardroom environment.
So I've gone from having my trusted data for data discovery, having stories built on that, going towards some digital insight.
Absolutely.
That I know my exec, when they're in their closed boardroom, can trust that data and make better business decisions with.
100%.
Sounds good.
Sounds awesome.
Is it real?
Indeed it is. And you can have it. It's there. It's ready to go. Why not?